Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriyet. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, today we are starting new chapter, chapter 12, Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. So in the previous chapter, Krishna talked about pure devotional service and different services one can render. So Uddhavji is further asked questions, and Krishna is starting new instructions here. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Narodhyati Mam Yogo Na Sankhyaam Dharma Evacha Na Swadhyaya Tapastyago Neshtha Purtam Na Dakshina Vratani Yagya Chandansi Tirthani Niyama Yamaha Yatha Varundhe Satsangha Sarva Sangha Pahohimam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Uddhav, by associating with my pure devotees, one can destroy one's attachment for all objects of material sense gratification. So that is the only way. Such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotee. One may perform the Ashtanga Yoga system, engage in philosophical analysis of the elements of material nature, that is Sankhya Yoga, practice non-violence and other ordinary principles of piety, Punya Karma, chant the Vedas, perform penances, take to the renounced order of life, execute sacrificial performances and dig wells, plant trees and perform other public welfare activities, give in charity, carry out severe vows, worship the demigods, chant confidential mantras, visit holy places, or accept major and minor disciplinary injunctions. But even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control. Clearly, he is saying that. What else we want? Or what brings him under control? Of course, we don't want to control Krishna. The point is, he comes under the control because of love of his devotees. And how do we develop that love? By associating with my pure devotees. That's what Krishna says. Simple as that. Of course, associating with devotees, we follow the whatever process they are following, and then we start to make progress in bhakti. The commentary of Srila Jiva Goswami on these two verses can be summarized as follows. One may serve the devotees of the Lord by assisting them or by having the person association. Association with pure devotees is sufficient for self-realization because one can learn everything about spiritual advancement from such devotees. With perfect knowledge, one can achieve all that one desires, for the process of devotion service immediately brings the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotion service is transcendental to the modes of nature, and therefore it appears mysterious to the souls conditioned by those modes. So it's not easy to come in association with devotees, come in contact with devotees, come in association, take the association, engage in pure devotion service. It's not that easy. It's very, very rare. In fact, in Nectar of Devotion, it is right. It's Sudurlabha. There's one characteristic of pure devotional service. It's Sudurlabha. It's very rare. And therefore it appears mysterious because generally people are conditioned by three modes, and pure devotion service is transcendental to the modes of nature. In the previous chapter, Lord Krishna stated, Havishagno yajetama. One may worship me in fire by offering oblations of ghee. Also in verse 38 of the previous chapter, it was mentioned that one should construct parks, recreational places, orchards, vegetable gardens, and so on. These serve to attract people to the temples of Krishna. where they may directly engage in chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such construction projects may be understood as spurtam or public welfare activities. Although Lord Krishna mentions in these two verses that association with his pure devotees is far more powerful than the process such as yoga, philosophical speculation, sacrifices, and public welfare activities. These secondary activities also please Krishna, but to a lesser extent. It's not the ultimate thing. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Manmana bhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Just do these 4 things and you'll come back to me. Taking up big projects of opening of temples and running, operation and maintenance, that's very high endeavor of any temple. But if it is leading us on the path, on progress towards Krishna, great. If it is leading us towards developing more attachment for Krishna Katha, wonderful. Krishna Seva, oh, wonderful. If it is not, then somehow we have to introspect ourselves. What I'm doing, where am I going? Specifically, they please the Lord when performed by devotees rather than by ordinary materialistic persons. Therefore, the comparative term yatha, according to proportion, is used. In other words, such practices as sacrifice, austerity, and philosophical study may help one become fit for rendering devotional service. And when such activities are performed by devotees aspiring for spiritual advancement, they become somewhat pleasing to the Lord. So the goal is spiritual advancement. One may study the example of Vritani or vows. The injunction that one should fast on Ekadashi is a permanent vow for all Vaishnavas. And one should not conclude from these verses that one may neglect the Ekadashi vow. The superiority of course, Ekadashi vow or fasting on Ekadashi, we don't fast keeping in mind all the material benefits one gets by observing Ekadashi fast. Because Ekadashi Mahatmya, if you read those stories, they're wonderful benedictions one gets by following Ekadashi. But our purpose of observing Ekadashi is, it's very dear to Krishna. Madhav Tithi Bhakti Janani. Madhav Tithi means all these special tithis. They're Bhakti Janani. So devotees observe Ekadashi because it pleases Krishna and it increases our bhakti for him. That's all. No material benedictions is what a devotee is aspiring for. The superiority of satsanga or association with pure devotees in awarding the fruit of love of Godhead does not mean that one should give up other processes or that these secondary processes are not permanent factors in Bhakti Yoga. There are many Vedic injunctions instructing one to execute the Agnihotra sacrifice, and the modern day followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also occasionally execute fire sacrifices. Such sacrifices are recommended by the Lord himself in the previous chapter, and therefore it should not be given up by the devotees of the Lord. By performing Vedic ritualistic and purificatory processes, one is gradually elevated to the platform of devotional service, whereupon one is able to directly worship the absolute truth. So slowly one makes progress by following all the limbs of bhakti. Again, it's a long purport. I'll just go to the last paragraph if that is important. If one falsely thinks that one may obtain the association of Lord Krishna merely by great austerities, brilliant studies in Sanskrit literature, magnanimous acts of charity, etc., one's Krishna consciousness will be distorted and weakened. So to obtain Krishna, or to please Krishna, that is the right word, it's only based on our service for Krishna. Nothing else. Nothing else pleases Krishna. Nothing else can um, captivate Krishna. One should remember the example of Lord Chaitanya, who practiced Krishna consciousness by constantly hearing and chanting about Lord Krishna. If by fasting, study, austerity, or sacrifice, one becomes more fit to participate in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya, then such activities are also pleasing to Lord Krishna. But the Lord clearly explains here that such activities can never become central in the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So what is in the center? What are the main activities? That is devotion service. What does it mean by devotion service? Navadha Bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pad Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedam. Simple as that. This is Navadha Bhakti. That's what pleases Krishna. Everything else, if it helps in Navadha Bhakti, great. Just like austerities, great austerities. One can perform Nirjal Ekadashi. Every Ekadashi has Nirjal. Great, if one can. But if it makes one more proud that, oh, look at me, I'm performing Nirjal Ekadashi and let's see everybody else, they are even enjoying feast on Ekadashi. What kind of bhogis are these? Then that's not good for our bhakti. That will not help. Brilliant studies in Sanskrit literature. Okay, I study all the Vedas and all the 6 Goswami literatures, and I know Sanskrit and everything. I memorize so many shlokas. That's good. But if it makes one proud, then it's not at all. That's not bhakti. That's not pleasing Krishna. And similar other things. So they must remain in an auxiliary relationship to the supreme process of satsanga, or association with the pure devotees who hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted from Vedic literature that if one offends the Lord's devotees and does not learn to associate with them, Lord Vishnu personally places barriers in the path of such a person so that he may not enter into the Lord's company. It's, of course, these are the barriers or obstacles. One can grow beyond the obstacles, but for time being, his progress will be stopped. Satsangen hi date yatu dhana mriga khaga gandharva apsaraso naga siddha sharana guyaka vidyadhara manusheshu vaishya shudra striyantyaja rajastama prakrityas tasmin yuge yuge bahavo mat padam prapta swashtra kaya dhavadaya vrish parva balir bano mayaschat vibhishana Sugrivo Hanuman Riksho Gajo Gridhro Vanik Patha Vyadha Kubja Vrje Gopyo Yagya Patanyas Tare. In every yuga, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. Thus, such living entities as the Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charan, Guyaks, and Vidyadhars, as well as such lower class human beings as the Vaishya, Shudras, women, and others were able to achieve my supreme abode. Means everybody is eligible. What's the key? By the association of my devotees. That's what Krishna says. He gives the examples. Vritrasura, Prahlad Maharaj, and others like them also achieved my abode by association with my devotees. As did personalities such as Vrishparva, Bali Maharaj, Banasur, Maye, Vibhishan, Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladhara, Dharmavyad, Kubja, the gopis in Vrindavan, and the wives of the Brahmins who were performing sacrifice. So this association is so important. The Lord has mentioned devotees such as gopis in Vrindavan and also demons like Banasur to illustrate how he comes under the control of those who surrender to him. It's understood that devotees like the gopis and others mentioned here obtained pure love of Krishna, whereas the demons generally obtained only salvation. Many demons were purified by the association with devotees and came to accept devotional service to the Lord as the most important among the various activities in their lives. But the exalted devotees like Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj know nothing except devotional service, which they accept as a very life. Still, the reformed demons are also mentioned so that readers of Srimad Bhagavatam will understand the enormous benefits one may achieve by associating with devotees of the Lord. So this is how powerful devotee association is. The demon Vritrasura was the pious king Chitraketu in his previous life, during which he associated with Sri Narad Muni, Sri Angira Muni, and Lord Sankarshan. Prahlad Maharaj, being the son of Hiranyakashipu, is considered a Daitya or a demon. Yet, while still in the womb of his mother Kayadhu, he associated with Narad Muni by sound vibration. The demon Vrishparva was abandoned by his mother at birth, but he was raised by a Muni and became a devotee of Lord Vishnu. Bali Maharaj associated with his grandfather Prahlad and also with Lord Vamandev. Bali Maharaj's son Banasur was saved by association with his father and Lord Shiva. He also associated with Lord Krishna personally when the Lord cut off all but 2 of his 1,000 arms, which had been awarded as a benediction by Lord Shiva. Understanding the glories of Lord Krishna, Banasur also became a great devotee. The demon Maidana constructed an assembly house for the Pandavas and also associated with Lord Krishna himself, eventually achieving the shelter of the Lord. Vibhishan was a pious-natured demon, the brother of Ravan, and he associated with Hanuman and Ramchandra. Sugriv, Hanuman, Jamvan, and Gajendra are examples of animals who achieved the mercy of Jamvan or Riksharaj was a member of a race of beasts. He personally associated with Lord Krishna, fighting with him over the Shemantak jewel. So we read that story. The elephant Gajendra in a previous life had association with devotees. And at the end of his life as Gajendra, he was personally saved by the Lord. Jatayu, the bird who at the cost of his own life assisted Lord Ramchandra, associated with Sri Garuda and Maharaj Dashrath, as well as other devotees in Ram Leela. He also personally met with Sita and Lord Ram. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the association that the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Naga, Siddha, Charan, Guyaks, and Vidyadhars had with the devotees is not very prominent and does not need to be mentioned. Some examples must be there, but the point is anybody and everybody can make progress by associating with the devotees. Vanikpatha is a Vaishya and his story is mentioned in Mahabharata in connection with the pride of Jajali Muni. I don't know what the story there, but we can search. But here it is not explained how Hanumanji came in association. Yes, he associated with Narad Muni for a while and other devotees. I'm not sure of how his name came in this shloka. He's a great devotee of the Lord from birth. The importance of association with devotees is illustrated in the story of Dharma Vyad, the non-violent hunter as described in the Varaha. In a previous life, he somehow became a Brahma Rakshas, or Brahman ghost, but he was eventually saved. In a previous Kali Yuga, he had the association of a Vaishnav king named Vasu. The lady Kubja associated directly with Lord Krishna, and in a previous birth, she had associated with Sri Narad Muni. The gopis of Vrindavan rendered service to saintly persons in their previous births. Having had ample association with devotees, they became gopis in Vrindavan. in their next lives and associated with the eternally liberated gopis who had descended there. So, eternally liberated gopis who had descended with Krishna from the spiritual world. But then these gopis who were either Munichari gopis or Vedchari or other entities who took the form of gopis in this life, then they became purified by associating with eternally liberated gopis. And then they also went back. They also had the association with Tulsi Devi or Vrinda Devi. The wives of the Brahmins performing sacrifice had association with women sent by Lord Krishna to sell flower garlands and betel nuts and heard about the Lord from them. And they did wonderful service for Krishna, Balram, and all the Gopas. Te nadhit shruti gana nopasit mahattamaha avritta tapta tapasaha mat sangana mam upagataha. The persons I have mentioned did not undergo serious studies of the Vedic literature, nor did they worship great saintly persons, nor did they execute severe vows or austerities. Simply by association with me and my devotees, they achieved me. So study of the Vedic literature, worship of those who teach the Shruti mantras, acceptance of vows and austerities, etc., as mentioned previously, are helpful processes that please the Supreme Personality of God. In this verse, however, the Lord again explains that all such processes are secondary to the essential process of associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pure devotees. By other processes, one may gain the association of the Lord and His devotees, which will actually give the perfection of life. The word mat sangat can also be read as sat sangat with the same meaning. In the reading mat sangas, mat is also understood to indicate those who are mine or the devotees. Srila Sridhar Swami mentions that a pure devotee can advance in Krishna consciousness by his own association, since simply by associating with his own activities and consciousness, he associates with the Lord. But that is for pure devotee. But even pure devotees, they always look for association of devotees. But at the same time, they're just completely satisfied in themselves. Kevalin hi bhavena gopyo gavo naga mrika ye anne murtiyo naga siddha mamiyo ranjasa. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the gopis, cows, unmoving creatures such as the twin urgent trees, animals, living entities with stunted consciousness such as bushes and thickets, and snakes such as Kaliya, all achieve the perfection of life by unalloyed love for me, and thus very easily achieved me. So this is the process. This chapter is very, very important actually. Although innumerable living entities achieved liberation by association with the Lord and His devotees, many such personalities also executed other processes such as austerity, charity, philosophical speculation, and so on. As we have already explained, such procedures are secondary. But the inhabitants of Vrindavan, such as the gopis, did not know anything except Lord Krishna. And their whole purpose in life was simply to love Lord Krishna, as indicated here by the words Kevalin hi bhavena. Even the trees, bushes, and hills, such as Govardhan, loved Lord Krishna, as the Lord explained to his brother Shri Baladev in the 10th canto. My dear brother Baladev, just see how these trees are bowing down with their branches and offering obeisances to your lotus feet, which are worshipable even by the demigods. Indeed, my dear brother, you are the supreme God, and thus these trees have produced fruits and flowers as an offering to you. Although a living entity takes birth as a tree due to the mode of ignorance, certainly by such birth in Vrindavan, these trees are destroying. Hare Krishna. Please make sure you don't unmute yourself. Although living entity takes birth as a tree due to the mode of ignorance, certainly by such birth in Vrindavan, these trees are destroying all darkness in their lives by serving your lotus feet. So even the trees in Vrindavan, and they're very, very fortunate. The one place that, okay, the trees are known as padap. They drink from their feet. Feet are the roots, and they get nourishment. But when they are in Vrindavan, of course they are padap, because they still don't leave their position of as a tree. But what do they drink? They drink or they accept the dust of Vrindavan, which is touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram. And by that touch, they get the nourishment. So fortunate, even those trees are. Although many living entities achieve the mercy of Lord Krishna by associating with the Lord and his devotees in various ways, those who take Lord Krishna as everything are situated in the highest process of spiritual realization. Therefore, the Lord has not bothered to mention in this verse those who achieve perfection through mixed processes, but rather glorifies the unalloyed devotees of Vrindavan, headed by the gopis who knew nothing but Lord Krishna. The residents of Vrindavan were so satisfied in their relationships with Lord Krishna that they did not pollute their loving service with mental speculation or fruitive desires. Although when Nand Baba and all the Gopas, they were performing, or they were fixing to perform Govardhan Puja, it sounded more like a fruitive activity. But no. Because their ultimate aim, they were performing Indra Puja. Because the ultimate aim was, okay, Indra supplies rain, and by rain our agriculture crops are growing, and the cows get the grass to eat, and they give us milk, by which basically we satisfy you, Krishna. Of course, they didn't say it that way, but they said by which we this is our livelihood. So it sounds like a karma kanda, but no, it's not, because their center of all their thoughts or activities was Krishna. So the Vrindavan Vasis, they don't get into any of mental speculation or fruitive desires. The gopis served Lord Krishna in the conjugal rasa relationship, whereas according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the cows loved Lord Krishna in Vatsalya rasa, or the love of parents for a child, because the cows were always supplying milk to child Krishna. Unmoving objects like Govardhan Hill and other hills and mountains loved Lord Krishna as a friend. And the ordinary animals, trees and bushes of Vrindavan loved Lord Krishna in Dasiras, or with love of his servant for his master. Snakes like Kali also developed this love in servitude, and after relishing their loving service to Lord Krishna, all of them went back home, back to Godhead. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, all those inhabitants of Vrindavan should be considered eternally liberated souls, as expressed by the word Siddha, which means having achieved the perfection of life. So this is the perfection, not by Gyan or by other austerities or by charity, by yagyas. One can only achieve Krishna by bhakti. Yamna yogena sankhena danavrata tapoadhvara vyakhya swadhyaya sannyasa prapno yadyatna vanapi. Even though one engages with great endeavor in the mystic yoga system philosophical speculation, charity, vows, penances, ritualistic sacrifices, teaching of Vedic mantras to others, personal study of the Vedas, or the renounced order of life, still one cannot achieve me. So, previous verse, he glorifies the devotion service. Now he is telling every other process, one cannot achieve me. Because Krishna is not pleased by all this. Many times we think, oh, if I am giving charity, Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. But Krishna is not saying that Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. We have to do what Krishna wants us to do, not what my mind tells me to do. Manav Seva is Madhav Seva if we feed that person Krishna Prasada. Then that is devotional service. We are feeding Krishna Prasada. We are bringing that person one step or many steps closer to Krishna by feeding him Krishna Prasad. We are not bringing him closer to Krishna by feeding him ordinary food, calling it Manav Seva is Madhav Seva. There is a little technical difference. People do argue who don't understand what is bhakti. They say, so we should not feed people, let them die hungry. No, who's saying don't feed people? Feed. Feed prasadam. That's all. Feed tons of prasadam, no problem. But feed prasadam. Lord Krishna here explains that it's very difficult to achieve his personal association, even for one who seriously endeavors to reach the absolute truth. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, such as the gopis and cows, were always living with Lord Krishna, and thus their association is called satsanga. Anyone who is favorably living with the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes sat or eternal. And thus the association of such a person can immediately award others pure devotion service to the Lord. There is an austerity called Chandrayan, a fast in which one's intake of food is diminished by one mouthful each day as a moon wanes and increased in the same way as a moon waxes. So, huge austerity. Similarly, there are painstaking ritualistic sacrifices and grueling studies of the Sanskrit Vedic mantras, which one may also teach to others. So painstaking ritualistic sacrifices, huge yagyas people perform. And somebody was mentioning in another group that, oh, this so-called person did 81 yagyas and it purifies the atmosphere. I say it doesn't even purify the person who's performing the yajna. Well, this friend of mine got offended. Then I had to explain to him, what is the purification? It's not like we fire, because of fire, the smoke rises in the atmosphere, and because it is, we are chanting so many mantras, whether correctly or incorrectly, it will purify that. I said, for how long and for what, to what distance it will purify? If the chanter is not pure at his heart, how is it going to purify anything? These mantras are not just dead mantras. They're all live mantras. Live means they are personalities. It's not just some dead words we are speaking in the air. No. All these tedious activities cannot award the highest perfection of life unless one gets the causeless mercy of the pure devotees of the Lord. As stated in first canto of Bhagavatam, Dharma svanushtita punsam vishwaksena kathasuyat na utpadyati adiratim shramevahi kevalam. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So it's only so much useless labor. That's all it is. रामेण सार्धम मथुराम प्रणीते श्वाफलकिना मयि अनुरक्त चित्ता विगाढ़ भावे न मे वियोग तीव्राध्यायो अन्यम ददृशु सुखाय. The residents of Vrindavan, headed by the gopis, were always completely attached to me with deepest love. Therefore, when my uncle Akrura brought my brother Balaram and me to the city of Mathura, the residents of Vrindavan suffered extreme mental distress because of separation from me and could not find any other source of happiness. This is how they were attached. This verse especially describes the sentiments of the cowherd girls of Vrindavan, the gopis, and Lord Krishna here reveals the incomparable love they felt for him. As explained in the 10th canto, Lord Krishna's uncle Akrura, sent by Kamsa, came to Vrindavan and took Krishna and Balram back to Mathura for a wrestling event. The gopis loved Lord Krishna so much that in his absence, their consciousness was completely absorbed in spiritual love. Thus, their Krishna consciousness is considered the highest perfectional stage of life. They were always expecting that Lord Krishna would finish his business of killing demons and return to them. And therefore, their anxiety was an extremely moving, heart-rending display of love. Anyone desiring true happiness must take to the devotional service of the Lord in the spirit of the gopis, giving up everything for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Very, very difficult. They are the topmost examples of perfection, of love for Krishna. Tastakshapa preshta tamena nita maya vrindavana gochare shanardha vatta punaranga ina maya kalpa sama babu. Dear Uddhav, all of those nights that the gopis spent with me, the most dearly beloved, in the land of Vrindavan, seemed to them to pass in less than a moment. Bereft of my association, however, the gopis felt that those same nights dragged on forever, as if each night were equal to a day of Brahma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says in Shikshashtakam, Yuga itam nimeshena chakshusha pravreshait shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahena. Even a yuga itam nimeshena, even a nimesh is blinking of the eye in separation from Krishna, it feels like a yuga. Yuga can mean 12 years also, and yuga can mean the full yuga, Kal Yuga, Satyuga, those yugas. I mean, this is the gopis, or especially Srimati Radharani's mood in separation from Krishna. Srila Sridhar Swami comments as follows: the gopis suffered extreme anxiety in the absence of Lord Krishna, and though outwardly appearing bewildered, they actually achieved the highest perfection stage of samadhi. Their consciousness was intensely and intimately attached to Lord Krishna, and by such Krishna consciousness, their own bodies seemed very far away from them. Even though people normally consider their body to be their closest possession. In fact, the gopis did not think about their own existence. Although a young woman normally considers her husband and children to be her dearmost possessions, the gopis did not even consider the existence of their so-called families. Nor could they think of this world or life after death. Indeed, they were not at all aware of these things. Just like great sages who become detached from the names and forms of the material world, the gopis could not think of anything because they were wrapped in loving remembrance of Lord Krishna. Just as rivers enter the ocean, similarly the gopis completely merged into consciousness of Lord Krishna through intense love. So completely merged into consciousness. They were only thinking of Krishna. In fact, at one place, because we are always taught, okay, we should remember Krishna. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. This is for us, for Vedis, sadhakas who are struggling with our sadhanas. Always think of Krishna. And gopis, while talking among themselves in separation from Krishna, when Krishna had left Vrindavan, of course, Krishna doesn't leave Vrindavan, but he just unmanifested and outwardly he went to Mathura and Dwarka. So gopis would talk to each other and they say, I want to forget Krishna. Let Krishna go out of my mind, of my heart, because I continue thinking of him and I cannot do my other daily chores. Taking care of the house and the family and husband. I cannot do that because I'm always thinking of Krishna. This is their position. We somehow have to force our mind to think of Krishna. Thus, a day of Brahma seemed like a single moment for the gopis when Lord Krishna was present with them. And a single moment seemed like a day of Brahma when Lord Krishna was absent. The Krishna consciousness of the gopis is a perfection of spiritual life. And the symptoms of such perfection are described here. Ta navidanmayanushangabadha dhiya swam atmanam adastatedam yatha samadho munyo abdito ye nadya pravishta ivanama rupe. My dear Uddhava, just as great sages in yoga trance merge into self-realization, like rivers merging into the ocean and others not aware of material names and forms, similarly, the gopis of Vrindavan were so completely attached to me within their minds that they could not think of their own bodies, or of this world, or of their future lives. Their entire consciousness was simply bound up in me. And Krishna had sent Uddhava earlier to Vrindavan to get lessons from gopis. At that time, when Srimati Radharani spoke to that Brahmar, bumblebee, it's called Brahmar Gita. And now again, Krishna is, I think Uddhava is reminding him of the gopis and he's thinking of gopis. So far, he never spoke about gopis to anybody else, but Uddhava is very, very eligible, very elevated. He could speak of gopis to Uddhava. He's just thinking of gopis. The words Swam Atmanam Adastatedam indicate that while for ordinary persons, one's personal body is the most near and dear thing, the gopis considered their own bodies to be distant and remote. Just as a yogi in samadhi trance considers ordinary things around his physical body or his physical body itself to be the most remote. When Lord Krishna played on his flute late at night, the gopis immediately forgot everything about their so-called husbands and children and went to dance with Lord Krishna in the forest. These controversial points have been clearly explained in the book Krishna by Srila Prabhupada. The basic explanation is that Lord Krishna is the source of everything, and the gopis are Lord's own potency. Thus, there is no discrepancy or immorality in the almighty personality of Godhead's loving affairs with his own manifest potency, the gopis, who happen to be the most beautiful young girls in the creation of God. There is no illusion on the part of the gopis, for they are so attracted to Lord Krishna that they do not care to think of anything else. Since all existence is situated within the body of Lord Krishna, there is no loss for gopis when they concentrate on the Lord. But then they concentrate on everything else. It's a nature of very deep love to exclude all objects except the beloved. However, in the material world, where we try to love a limited temporary object, such as our nation, family, or personal body, our exclusion of other objects constitutes ignorance. But when our love is intensely concentrated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of everything, such concentration cannot be considered ignorance or small mindedness. So, Gopi is thinking only of Krishna. It's not ignorance, it's just their love, complete love. And within Krishna is everything. So, but they are only concerned with Krishna. So there is no comparison between the ecstatic love of gopis and the dry meditation of the yogis who merely try to understand that they are not their material bodies. Since the gopis had no material bodies to become detached from and were personally dancing with and embracing the absolute truth, one can never compare the exalted position of the gopis to that of mere yogis. So the yogis, or even in modern days, if we think of yogis such as Buddhist monks, they're very good in yoga or meditation. And they seem very calm and quiet and composed, and everything is in their control, especially the mind is in their control. But this does not please Krishna. So it's not the ultimate. On the other hand, we all have been to Braj, Vrindavan, and other places. We'll again take a trip. You see the Brajvasis. These Braja, even today, I'm not talking about gopis at the time of Krishna, Brajvasis, even today. You will see them fighting with each other, cheating in mundane way, or using abusive language or other things. But they are very, very dear to Krishna. Nobody takes birth in Braj without being dear to Krishna, without being a very, very exalted devotee. So it sounds sometimes like it doesn't make sense. No, because devotion service is what pleases Krishna, not anything else. One should understand that the gopis were not in any way inclined towards impersonal meditation, in which one denies the reality of variegated creation. The gopis did not deny anything. They simply loved Krishna and could not think of anything else. They only rejected whatever impeded their concentration on Lord Krishna, cursing even their own eyelids, which blinked and thus removed Krishna from their sight for a split second. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated that all sincere devotees of the Lord should have courage to remove from their lives anything that impedes their progressive march back to Godhead. So this should be our goal, to develop that love for Krishna like the gopis had. And that will be the perfection. I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.